The studio lights blazed brightly as Keanu Reeves walked onto the talk show stage, greeted by thunderous applause. The audience was thrilled after all. Keanu wasn't just a Hollywood icon, but also a symbol of humility and kindness. Smiling politely, he took his seat across from the host, but almost instantly, the atmosphere shifted. The host, known for his sharp tongue and sensational tactics, leaned forward with a smirk. Instead of asking about Keanu's latest film or his career journey, he went straight for a cutting remark mocking Keanu's quiet personality and even poking fun at his personal tragedies. Gasps rippled through the audience, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Keanu, however, didn't flinch. His calm eyes locked on the host, his posture steady. There was no anger, no raised voice-only silence that seemed to echo louder than the insult itself. The crowd held its breath, wondering how he would respond. And then, with a voice both gentle and firm, Keanu leaned closer to the microphone and said something that instantly silenced the room. The studio hung in suspense. The rude question still lingered in the air like smoke after a firework, and all eyes were on Keanu. Instead of snapping back, he tilted his head slightly, almost as if he were weighing every word with care. Finally, he spoke. His voice was soft, but each syllable carried strength. "You know," Keanu began, "people don't remember the insults you throw at them. They remember how you made them feel in that moment. And right now, I think everyone in this room can feel the weight of what was just said." The host shifted in his chair, suddenly uncomfortable. But Keanu wasn't done. He leaned forward, his eyes never leaving the host's face. "I've faced loss, heartbreak, and moments when I thought I couldn't keep going. But through all of it, I learned something. Kindness is never weakness. Compassion doesn't make you soft, it makes you human. And when someone tries to strip that away with cruelty, it doesn't say anything about the person being attacked. It says everything about the person doing the attacking." The audience erupted into spontaneous applause, the sound growing louder and louder until the host was forced to pause and lean back, clearly rattled. Camera zoomed in on the expressions. Of the crowd, some people were nodding, with tears in their eyes. Others clapped so hard their hands turned red. Keanu continued, his tone unwavering. "You invited me here to talk about my work, my life, maybe even inspire a few people watching at home. But if the purpose of this conversation is to humiliate, then maybe we're wasting everyone's time. Because I didn't come here to play games. I came here to show people that no matter what they've been through, they can still choose grace over bitterness." The host, visibly embarrassed, tried to force a laugh, but the cameras caught his faltering smile. For once, his sharp tongue had failed him. Keanu simply sat back in his chair, calm as ever, as though he hadn't just turned a hostile moment into one of the most powerful talk show exchanges ever witnessed. The broadcast wrapped up with the audience still buzzing from Keanu's words. As soon as the cameras cut, the host tried to put on his usual fake charm, shaking Keanu's hand and saying, "Great segment. Really powerful stuff." But everyone could see the stiffness in his smile. Keanu simply nodded, gracious as always before walking off stage. Backstage, the atmosphere was different, quieter, heavier. Crew members whispered to each other, still in awe of how Keanu had handled the situation. Some even clapped softly as he walked past, offering him respectful nods. But the host wasn't finished. He stormed down the corridor, catching up with Keanu near the dressing rooms. His voice was lower now, edged with frustration. "You made me look like a fool out there," the host snapped. "Do you have any idea how this makes me look on live television? People will tear me apart for this." Keanu stopped walking and turned slowly, meeting the host's eyes with that same calm, steady presence. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even frown. Instead, he spoke as though he were teaching a lesson. "You didn't need my help to look foolish," Keanu replied quietly. "All I did was hold up a mirror. What you saw in it, that was you. The host's face turned red, caught between anger and shame. For a moment, he opened his mouth as if to argue, but no words came out. Keanu went on, "People aren't tuning in for cruelty. They want honesty. They want humanity. If you try to tear others down, eventually you're the only one left standing. And standing alone is a very cold place to be." The silence stretched. Crew members nearby pretended to busy themselves, but every ear was tuned to the conversation. The host's bravado melted away, and he looked down at the floor, unable to hold Keanu's gaze any longer. Without another word, Keanu gently patted him on the shoulder, a gesture of compassion, not victory, and walked into his dressing room. The door closed behind him, leaving the host staring blankly at the hallway wall, perhaps realizing for the first time that sometimes the most powerful confrontation isn't one fueled by anger, but by truth. The next morning, the internet was on fire. Within hours of the show airing, clips of Keanu's calm yet powerful confrontation had gone viral across every platform. Headlines exploded. Keanu Reeves silences talk show host with classy response. The moment that left millions speechless. Kindness wins. Keanu teaches the world a lesson in grace. People replayed the moment over and over again, dissecting his words, quoting them in comment sections, and sharing them with captions like, "This is how you handle disrespect," and "True class never raises its voice." The video quickly climbed to the top of trending lists, gathering millions of views overnight. Audiences who had been in the studio recounted the experience online. You could feel the energy shift in the room. It was like time stopped, and everyone realized they were witnessing something bigger than an interview. It was a life lesson. Others admitted they had been moved to tears, saying that Keanu's words helped them rethink how they handle negativity in their own lives. Meanwhile, the host was facing a storm of criticism. Social media tore him apart for his cruelty, calling his behavior unprofessional, pathetic, and shameful. Memes of him squirming in his chair while Keanu spoke flooded Twitter and Instagram. Sponsors of the show reportedly demanded a meeting with network executives, embarrassed that their brand was tied to such a public backlash. But Keanu? He stayed silent. He didn't release a statement, didn't tweet, didn't add fuel to the fire. Instead, paparazzi photos captured him quietly sitting on a park bench, sipping coffee and reading a worn-out paperback book, seemingly untouched by the chaos he had unknowingly created. What made the moment even more powerful was that he hadn't planned it. Friends close to Keanu revealed that he wasn't interested in humiliating the host. He had simply spoken from the heart. "That's just who he is," one friend told a reporter. "He doesn't believe in fighting fire with fire. He believes in being the water that puts the flames out." Soon, celebrities and public figures began weighing in. Famous actors, musicians, and even motivational speakers praised him for his grace. Hashtags like #KeanuWisdom and #ChooseKindness trended worldwide. Schools began playing the clip in classrooms as an example of dignity under pressure. And in an unexpected twist, the host himself finally broke his silence. In a shaky live broadcast the following week, he admitted, "I crossed a line. Keanu showed me and the world that compassion is more powerful than mockery. For that, I owe him an apology and I owe myself a change." It was a rare public admission, one that stunned viewers who were used to his arrogance. Whether the apology was genuine or simply damage control, no one could be sure. But what everyone was sure of was this: Keanu Reeves had once again proven that you don't need to raise your voice to be heard. The host's public apology made headlines, but most people doubted its sincerity. Many assumed it was just an attempt to save his career. What no one knew, however, was that Keanu had quietly reached out to the host, not for revenge, not for publicity, but for something far more surprising. A week later, away from cameras and flashing lights, the host walked nervously into a quiet cafe in Los Angeles. He had been invited there by Keanu himself. No entourage, no managers, no press, just a simple handwritten note delivered through a mutual contact. "If you'd like to talk, meet me here. K." The host entered cautiously, scanning the room, until he spotted Keanu sitting at a corner table, dressed simply in jeans and a worn leather jacket. No bodyguards, no assistants, just a cup of tea steaming in front of him and that calm, steady presence. "Thanks for coming," Keanu said, offering a small smile. The host sat down awkwardly, his hands fidgeting. "Listen, I embarrassed myself. I embarrassed my show. And honestly, I don't even know why you wanted to meet me after the way I treated you." Keanu leaned back, his gaze soft but firm. "Because people deserve second chances. We all say things we regret. What matters is whether we learn from them." The host swallowed hard, his usual sharp tongue nowhere to be found. "You made me realize something. I've spent years tearing people down for ratings. I forgot what it means to actually connect with someone. To be human." For the first time in a long time, his voice cracked. "I've built my career on making others uncomfortable. And that night, you didn't fight me. You didn't insult me back. You just held up a mirror. And I hated what I saw." Keanu didn't rush to respond. He let the silence settle, letting the man's words hang in the air before answering. "You saw the truth," Keanu finally said. "And truth can be uncomfortable. But it can also set you free if you let it." The host blinked rapidly, clearly fighting emotion. How do you stay so calm, so kind? After everything you've been through?" Keanu's eyes grew distant for a moment, as if remembering ghosts from his past. "Because I know what it feels like to lose everything. I know how precious life is and how fragile. Every word we say can either build someone up or break them down. I choose to build." The host lowered his head, unable to meet Keanu's eyes. For once, the man who made a career out of humiliating others felt humbled yet strangely relieved. Keanu reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He slid it across the table. "This isn't for the cameras. It's a quote that's helped me through dark times. Maybe it can help you too." The host unfolded it slowly. Written in neat handwriting were the words, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about." The host's eyes glistened. For the first time, he felt something shift inside him, not fear of losing his career. Months passed after that quiet cafe meeting. The viral clip of Keanu's response was still circulating the internet, now hailed as one of the most unforgettable talk show moments of the decade. Schools used it in lessons, motivational speakers quoted it in seminars, and countless everyday people said it gave them strength to handle their own struggles with dignity. But the host remained out of the spotlight. His ratings had dropped, sponsors had pulled back, and his once confident persona had all but vanished. People assumed his career was over. Then, unexpectedly, the network announced he would return to the air with a special guest. When the night arrived, viewers tuned in by the millions, curious and skeptical. The studio lights blazed once again, but this time the host didn't walk out with his usual smirk. Instead, he appeared solemn, almost vulnerable. He greeted the audience not with jokes, but with silence. And then he began. "Not long ago, I made a mistake on this stage, a big one. I tried to embarrass someone who didn't deserve it. I thought cruelty was entertainment, but I was wrong. And that moment changed me." The audience shifted, surprised by his honesty. Cameras panned to the side stage, and the crowd erupted as Keanu Reeves walked out, his calm smile lighting up the room just as it had before. The two men shook hands, this time with genuine respect. The host turned to the audience. "This man taught me something, that kindness is strength, that words matter, that it's never too late to change the way you treat people. And I want to prove that I've learned my lesson not just with words, but with actions. He announced that the network, under his lead, would be launching a new initiative every month. They would highlight stories of everyday heroes, ordinary people who chose compassion, courage, and kindness in their communities. Instead of tearing guests down, the show would now lift people up. Keanu nodded, his eyes warm but humble, and simply said, "That's the real power of media, not to divide us, but to remind us of what we share." The audience leapt to their feet, cheering louder than ever before. Some even wiped tears from their eyes. In that moment, it wasn't about a celebrity or a host or even a viral clip. It was about a truth bigger than both of them. That change was possible, that humility could heal, and that kindness once planted could grow in even the most unlikely places. As the credits rolled, millions of viewers at home were left with a simple lesson, one that Keanu had embodied all along. The strongest voice is the one that speaks with compassion. Weeks after that unforgettable episode, something remarkable began to unfold. The network's new initiative didn't just stay within the studio walls, it spread like wildfire. Stories of unsung heroes, kind strangers, and brave everyday people began to fill living rooms across the world. Ratings soared higher than ever, not because of scandals or drama, but because people were hungry for hope. Communities started sending in their own stories. Teachers wrote about students who stood up against bullying. Nurses shared tales of patients helping one another through impossible odds. Entire towns nominated their local heroes: janitors, bus drivers, grocery clerks, people who had never been recognized before. And at the heart of it all, Keanu quietly stayed in the background. He didn't take credit, he didn't make it about himself. But the world knew. This wave of change had begun with him choosing kindness over confrontation that one night on stage. Then came the moment nobody expected. During one of the new Everyday Heroes specials, the host turned to Keanu, who had returned once more as a surprise guest, and said, "There's one story we haven't told yet, the story of the man who reminded us what strength really looks like. A man who chose compassion when he had every reason not to. Keanu, tonight, you are our hero." The audience gasped, then exploded into applause. Keanu, visibly moved, shook his head humbly. "I'm no hero," he said softly. "The real heroes are the people who carry kindness into their daily lives. The parents, the teachers, the neighbors, the strangers who show up for each other when it matters most." But the host pressed on. "Maybe so. But sometimes the world needs a reminder. And you gave us that." The studio went quiet again, not out of discomfort this time, but out of reverence. In that silence, something shifted. The host who once thrived on cruelty was now leading a movement of kindness. And the actor who had chosen humility had sparked a cultural ripple effect felt across the globe. That night, as Keanu left the studio, he stepped into the cool night air, away from the cameras, away from the lights. Across the street, a small group of fans had gathered, not screaming, not asking for autographs. They simply held up a handmade sign that read, "Thank you for reminding us who we can be." Keanu smiled quietly, lifted a hand in gratitude, and walked off into the night, content not with fame, but with the knowledge that one act of compassion had become a legacy. The viral clip of Keanu's confrontation with the rude host was no longer just a trending moment, it had become a cultural landmark. Universities dissected it in ethics courses. Leaders quoted it in speeches. And quietly, it had sown seeds of change across generations. By now, the host who once thrived on cruelty had reinvented himself completely. His show had transformed into a global platform for compassion. Ratings no longer measured its success, impact did. Schools, hospitals, and charities were being funded through initiatives launched by the program. Children grew up not idolizing gossip or scandal, but admiring kindness as a form of strength. But Keanu Reeves? He remained exactly as he always was, quiet, humble, walking the streets of Los Angeles without security, riding the subway, giving up his seat for strangers. Fame had never defined him, and it never would. One evening, after attending a small community event honoring volunteers, Keanu was about to leave when a young man nervously approached him. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Mr. Reeves? I don't know if you remember, but years ago, your words on that talk show saved my life. I was being bullied, I felt worthless, and then I saw you stand up for kindness. That night, I decided not to give up. Today, I'm a teacher. And every day, I try to pass that lesson on to my students." Keanu's eyes softened. He placed a gentle hand on the young man's shoulder and replied quietly, "You're the hero. You chose to keep going. And now, you're giving others the same hope. That's what matters." Stories like this multiplied ripples that turned into waves. Entire communities began building programs around the philosophy that one act of compassion could shift a person's life forever. Years later, when Keanu was honored at a global humanitarian ceremony not for his movies, but for his influence on culture, the world stood to applaud him. Yet when he walked up to the podium, he didn't speak about himself. Instead, he said, "I've played many roles in my career. Warriors, fighters, heroes. But none of that matters compared to the role we all play every day, the role of being human. If you remember one thing from my journey, let it be this: choose kindness. It outlives everything." The audience rose, many in tears. Around the world, millions watched the broadcast not as fans of an actor, but as participants in a shared truth. And when the lights dimmed, when the speeches ended, and when the cameras were gone, Keanu walked off quietly, blending into the crowd. He had never sought the spotlight. He had simply carried a lantern of compassion, and in doing so, lit countless others. From that single night on a talk show stage, a lesson had taken root in hearts across the globe. This ending ties everything together into a powerful, emotional finale, a legacy that goes beyond one moment and shows how it reshaped countless lives.